Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The head of the RCMP's extortion task force has been facing backlash for saying extortion threats and shootings in Surrey were not a crisis. He has since apologized, but the comments have raised questions about how seriously authorities are taking these extortion cases. We'll be joined by former NDP MLA Jinny Sims, and we're asking you, are you concerned that extortion is not being prioritized? After 12:30, we'll soon see an influx of Chinese electric vehicles. We'll take your questions. What do you want to know about Chinese EVs? After 12:30, that's coming up. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thanks for joining us on CBC Radio, television, and live streaming too. And you can call us now. Are you concerned that extortion-related threats and shootings are not being prioritized? And what's needed to reassure citizens? Our number is 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. Or you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email us at bctoday@cbc.ca. Well, political leaders in Surrey and Victoria are questioning the urgency of the provincial extortion task force. This after the head of the task force, RCMP Assistant Commissioner John Brewer, did face backlash for comments he made at a press conference on Tuesday, saying the extortion crisis in Surrey is not a crisis.
Every police officer in this province, and especially in the Lower Mainland and part of this task force, is working around the clock to ensure their safety. So I would say to everybody here, there's not a crisis. A crisis is what's happening out there with drug overdoses. That's a crisis. People are dying. This is a threat to public safety, absolutely, and I take it very seriously.
Now, Premier David Eby had some strong words when he was asked about that yesterday in Prince George.
I'll speak bluntly. If Mr. Brewer does not feel that urgency, does not feel that this is a crisis, then perhaps he's not the right person to head up this task force.
That's Premier David Eby speaking yesterday. Now, Brewer, for his part, did apologize on Wednesday. He said in a statement, "I want to apologize for challenging the term crisis yesterday, as it has become the focus and called into question the RCMP's commitment to addressing extortions in BC. That was not my intention. The opportunity to provide an update and reassure the public has instead impacted public confidence. The task force's commitment to addressing the ongoing threats and violence has not wavered. Our efforts have never been limited because of a term. Extortions remain one of our highest priorities." Well, this morning, Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke spoke with the early edition host Stephen Quinn and said that Brewer's comments from Tuesday were far from reassuring.
I don't know how he expected that to be reassuring to the public when we're seeing the level of gun violence, extortion violence that we're seeing in the city of Surrey. It is incredible, and his words were really, really very hurtful, not just to the people that are victims of violence, but to our city in general. So I take his reconsideration of his words, and I'm glad that he walked them back.
Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke on the early edition this morning, and we are taking your calls. Are you concerned that the extortion-related threats and shootings are not being prioritized? And what do you think is needed to reassure the public? You can call us now, dial 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or 1-800-825-5950. You can also just hit pound 690 on your cell phone, and you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. I'm joined here in studio by Jinny Sims. She's a host at Swift 1200 AM radio in Surrey. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to speak with you again on this issue, and it's good to have you here in studio. And we spoke last time, following your radio station being targeted by a shooting. Thankfully, no one was present at the time. What went through your mind when you heard John Brewer's comments on Tuesday?
I was at the press conference. I was actually shocked. For people who live in Surrey, to have two shootings a day, two extortion calls a day, 8 shootings in the first 20 days of this year. It feels like a crisis. When you go into the community, whether you're going to birthday parties, family gatherings, community events, that's what people in the South Asian community are talking about. It used to be like, oh, only the people who have lots and lots of money are being targeted, and people kind of got a little bit of confidence from that it's not us. But now the feeling in Surrey is, when am I going to get the phone call? Because now it's tradespeople, it's professional people, it's lawyers, it's anybody who even is seen to have a nice car, right? So it has spread so much, and my fear is that only a small amount are reporting, and there is a much greater number who are not reporting. And the question to ask is, why are they not reporting? I believe they're not reporting because the people who have reported have gone back and told them that you will not get the protection you need, nor will your family, and you're basically on your own. No matter what the police forces keep saying, you get a little bit of attention for the first 24 hours, little bit less for the next 48, and after that, oh, well, they're not really shooting to kill, and it seems to move on. And then it's things like leave town, change your phone number, don't pick up the phone, and basically go and stay somewhere else. And when you live in a city and you have a family and you have a business, we can't be asking our community to leave town for an indefinite period.
You said you believe that that's what's happening, that people who have been reporting are not finding that follow-up. Is this something you've heard personally firsthand?
Personally, I could fill a room, and it would be standing room only of people who will come and tell you their stories. I know personally many of these families. Over the weekend, I met with 7 other families who've had calls. Even the family where the family member or somebody in the house fired back, they were at the police, with the police the day before, saying, look, this is the kind of language they're using now. And yet, when those guns were fired, where was the police?
And, we've heard that you're referring to a case just in recent days, and we've heard from police saying they don't, support vigilantism.
I do not support vigilantism because then we move into anarchy and chaos. I believe people need to report. I'm telling people not to pay, and I know people are paying. And I'm telling people to keep going to the police and rely on the police. But it's very hard to keep saying that with a straight face when I literally had tears flowing down my face when I watched a grown man crying, saying, what about my grandchildren? He goes, I can put my life in danger, but do you think my wife will ever forgive me if anything happens to our grandkids or kids? And so families are desperate, and they are feeling that it's not getting the kind of attention it would. And the mayor said it yesterday, than if it was happening in another part of the city or in a different city altogether.
Why do you think it's not getting the attention that otherwise?
The province has put in lots of resources into Surrey. The province appointed a special task force. But despite all those resources, they're working closely with the SPS. I do not know whether the SPS does not have the expertise or the manpower. They keep telling us they've got the resources. They keep telling us in front of other partners, as well as on our own, it's not a resource issue. It's just that these cases are complicated. So what I'm saying is they're very, very simple things. I'm not a police officer, so I don't want to tell them how to do their job. But one thing I know is, how many times have I seen the streets being blocked off after a shooting, right? We have over 640 cameras that our police has almost instant access to. I went and saw those cameras for myself yesterday. And the big room, the control room. So they can have access as soon as they make a phone call. It's a two-way patch, and they've got live access. We've got those. Everybody has cameras now. And yet, despite that, where are the cars? It seems like it's the same 2 or 3 cars that are going around. Why haven't they been captured? If you look at this, since this issue took on a really ugly turn since last August, the numbers escalated. We're told we've made 7 arrests. We've made 9 deportations. And we have 111 in the works. But people are saying, if you've done all of that, how come the shootings have escalated and the number of cases keep escalating?
Jinny, I'm going to take a call here. My guest is former NDP MLA for Surrey Panorama, Jinny Sims, and now a host at Swift 1200 AM radio in Surrey. And we're asking you, are you concerned that extortion isn't being prioritized enough? And what is needed to reassure the public? You can give us a call, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. Again, 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. Roger is calling us from Kamloops. Hi, Roger. Welcome. Thanks for giving us a call.
Yeah, you bet. The criminals got more rights than the general public does. And when the criminals are at your door pointing a gun at you, and they are pointing the gun to kill you, they're not pointing the gun because they're doing anything else, but we have no rights. We got, if you shoot back, you're in the wrong, you're a criminal. Our gun control laws have made it so that the general public, can't even, go through all the scrutiny of the PAL and the restricted weapons and anything else to buy, to protect yourself. And if you do protect yourself, you become the criminal, and that's just wrong.
Okay, so you're saying that's what people have been pushed to. Roger, thank you for the call in Kamloops. Of course, as you just said, he's referring again to that same case earlier, and you were saying that you don't condone vigilantism either.
I do not condone that, but I have been telling the police this for the last 5 months, that the feelings in the community are, we're taxpayers, we're residents, we're Canadians. Some of these businessmen have been they were born here, they grew up here. Some of them are naturalized Canadians. And what they're saying is, the police is saying they can't protect us. They're saying the police use those terms.
The police are saying they can't protect them?
The police is saying this is all we can do. Tell you to put your cameras in. Hire a bodyguard, a security guard.
But are they saying they can't protect them?
They are saying we can't be with you 24/7 and we can't leave a car here. And when they say that, what they're saying is we can't do it. And what I'm finding very, very hard now is if people are being told we cannot protect your family, we can't give you the security we know you need for whatever reason, then people are being forced into thinking, if I want to protect my family, then I have to take these steps. I'm absolutely against that. But I know people who are saying, we're buying a gun. And these are people I never, ever thought I would hear say that, who are saying, because if the police cannot even be at my house when I'm receiving these threatening phone calls, they're coming after me and my family, then I'm just a sitting duck.
Is it realistic to expect police to be there 24/7?
I don't know what more they could do, but I will say this. If there are 2 cases a day right now, how many cases are there where actually gunfires, how many victims who've had guns fired at their houses? So at least once you've had gunfire at your house or your business, then they should narrow it down to those people. I'm not saying they need to start providing 24/7 the moment somebody gets an email or a text message or a WhatsApp message or a phone call. But what I am saying, once gunshots begin to fly, then I think as a Canadian, you have an expectation that your security system, your police service is going to be there for you. If you are a criminal, I lived downtown for many, many years in the West End when I was president of the BC Teachers Federation. And during that time, there was a really ugly gang war that went on in Surrey. And at that time, I used to hear my friends even saying, well, it's just gangsters killing gangsters. It's sort of, at least it's contained. Now I'm beginning to get the feeling, and I'm not the only one, I'm hearing this in the community, it is South Asian people who are the perpetrators. They're the ones who are doing the threatening. They're the ones who are firing the guns. And the victims are the South Asians. Is that why we are not taking it as seriously as we should be? And I'm not the only one to raise that question. The community is asking that question. The mayor has asked that question. Is Surrey is this being down-treated because it is happening within one community? And I say the same thing to my community, the South Asian community. I say to them, it's a question we have to ask as well. Why is it happening only in this community and it's being done by our community members? So this is a very complex issue. I am not saying there is a sweet pill. There is no sweet candy that you can say, here we have a solution. At the same time, if you're going to get a handle on this, you need to bring in experts who are used to dealing with this, high level of intelligence, involve all the agencies, including immigration and everybody else because of the 9 deportations, but they're not all outsiders. But also, I will say, the additional thing you need to do, and you need to do quickly, and that is make sure if somebody comes and complains to the police that they get the protection once bullets start to fly. Because if you don't provide protection, this is going to go underground. People are going to start paying because when your family is at risk, you have some pretty tough choices. I've seen grown men burst into tears as they're talking about their grandkids and their kids.
You said there's not one thing, right? Not one a sweet pill, as you said. Let me just play another clip of Brenda Locke from this morning on the Early Edition.
The problem is it's such a complicated and involved situation that we're in right now in the city of Surrey, and that is why I've asked for a commissioner for extortion violence against Canadians. I think one of the things that concerns me the most is it's not just that we're not hearing from the Joint Forces Operation, John Brewer, we're not hearing from the Surrey Police Service, we're not hearing from the Surrey Police Board. We're just not getting the information to our residents. But more importantly than that, we're not seeing a change in what's happened.
What do you make of that call, a commissioner?
You know what? Anything. At this stage.
It would be one more thing, wouldn't it?
It would be one more tool. And I quite honestly think because this issue is not unique to Surrey, it's happening in Abbotsford, it's happening in Brampton, it's happening in many cities in Ontario, mainly South Asian. Maybe what we do need is a commissioner who can, from the top, look down to see where the gaps are. But at the same time, I'm going to say, unless people see some results, you will have more people taking matters into their own hands, and we do not want that.
You mentioned Brampton. Carmela is on the line from New Westminster to talk about that and other jurisdictions as well. Carmela, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Go ahead.
Okay, yes. Well, one of my 2 points that came to mind. One is, you've got this newer police service in Surrey, the Surrey Police Service, and you've got this terrible situation. I don't mean to be critical, but is it just that they're not up to it? You wonder if the RCMP, former policing service, would have handled it differently. It's just a question. Mm-hmm. And the second one is, yes, how are they handling it in Brampton? Do you know Jinny Sims? Is it different? Can we learn something from, how it's being handled there? And the idea of a commissioner, to me, is just one more layer of bureaucracy. It's just passing the buck. But I don't have any answers. I just wonder, can Surrey be, and even you, Jinny, talk to the mayor's office in Brampton? What are they doing there? How are they handling it?
Very useful questions, Carmel. Thank you. Yes.
I have talked to the people in Brampton, including people from the police services, and they are in a very dire situation as well. And what they're asking for is a task force that we have. They would like one like that for their region. The mayor is in constant contact, she tells us, with other mayors who are being impacted by these extortions. But a very good point was raised. Is it the inexperience of the SPS? I don't have an answer to that, but I am beginning to feel, from what people are telling me, that maybe there is a role for the federal RCMP to bring in extra officers. I know they brought in extra surge. Maybe we need more to work alongside our Surrey Police Service. Our Surrey Police Chief has been invisible. I hear he did come out onto one of the radio stations today.
He issued an update this week.
Yes, on a 2.5-minute update by a video. He did make a commitment last October that he would come back regularly to the public and give updates. But I am beginning to think that when you have this situation where the police chief, when you have this kind of a crisis, you need the leaders in the community, and that is the police chief when it comes to public safety, to be out there publicly, reassuring people they're doing everything they can. And people haven't seen that. So, and also when I talk to the task force, they tell me that the personal security and the initial investigations are in the hands of the SPS, the SPS.
Okay.
And if the SPS feels that this is beyond them, they really need to speak up, because we don't want to see lives being lost due to this.
My guest is Jinny Sims, radio show host in Surrey and former NDP MLA for Surrey Panorama. I want to put this email to you, and we've been talking about this. There has been a surge of cases, 34 extortion cases in Surrey since the start of the year, but also because of the comments from the head of the RCMP task force, declining to use the word crisis and referring to the extortion threats and shootings. Christina writes us from Surrey. I'm a resident of Surrey. I'm frustrated about this controversy about words. BC has used the term overdose crisis for nearly 10 years, and that has done very little to actually address the problem. It is naive to expect that if the RCMP guy would say there was a crisis, things would get better. We need to finally address the underlying issues, the failure to enforce existing immigration laws. Also, when RCMP arrests criminals, they're often back on the streets within hours or days. That needs to change. Is there too much focus on the semantics, perhaps? Or is it just semantics, or beyond? Is it beyond that?
At the end of the day, it is a crisis. Call it what you like, serious situation. We're taking it seriously. I think I really appreciate the fact that Officer Brewer did come out and apologize. Now we need to move on. We need to move on, and we need to find solutions. And this means everybody working together, not pointing fingers at each other, but being honest about what we're able to do. And if the police service or the extortion task force and other agencies need more resources, they need to start speaking up, not publicly maybe, if that's not their purview. They can speak up in other venues and do so. But every day you hear of something else. Somebody else says, oh, get a helicopter. And I keep thinking, really? Oh, get more cameras. Well, we're not even accessing the 642 cameras we have right now. So for me, I think your last, not caller, the person who wrote in, absolutely gets it. It's time to get down to dealing with the shootings. I sometimes start hearing, oh, is it happening from here, there, everywhere? Who's behind it? Well, the commissioner very, very clearly said, Officer Brewer, that those gangs are here. They're being driven from here. They're from the other provinces. They could be from other countries. At the end of the day, where are the guns being fired? In Surrey. Where are the extortions taking place? In Surrey. So if they're being fired in Surrey, the perpetrators are in Surrey, the victims are in Surrey, we want to hold our elected and our police forces to account for what's happening here, and then the federal agencies to deal with if there is anything from the outside. But I think we throw boogeymen into this formula, and everybody gets to escape responsibility. And I think the citizens of Surrey deserve a lot better than that.
It's really very good to have you here in studio for this. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
That's Jinny Sims, former NDP MLA for Surrey Panorama, and now a host at Swift 1200 Radio in Surrey, serving the South Asian communities. Thanks so much for all of your calls, your emails as well. You can keep writing in bctoday@cbc.ca. Right now it is 12:31. You're with BC Today, and it is time for a CBC News Update. And here's Rob Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. A new study by doctors at BC Children's Hospital has led to concerns about the potential for more people getting infected with avian flu. The study focuses on a 13-year-old BC girl who's believed to have been the first person in Canada to become infected. Doctors say after months of treatment, the girl has recovered. Officials are doing an aerial survey of an ice jam that has led to a local state of emergency in part of northern BC. It's been a week since some people in the regional district of Kitimat-Stikine had to leave their homes because of localized flooding due to the blockage. District officials say the situation remains stable, but the evacuation orders remain and people are reminded to use caution. And the Metro Vancouver Regional District says the local landfill's lifespan has been extended by about 20 years to 2050 due to more estimated volume within its boundaries. It says allowing the landfill to continue to operate will save about $300 million for residents in terms of future tipping fees and conservation efforts at Burns Bog. And now the forecast. The fog advisory continues for sections of Vancouver Island, the Sunshine Coast, and Metro Vancouver. On the north coast, sunny this afternoon with a high of 6. Highs to -16 with a chance of flurries in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, mainly cloudy with a high of -10. Highs from -4 to 0 with a slight chance of flurries in sections of the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a valley cloud with a high of +1. And mainly cloudy this afternoon in Greater Victoria. A bit of sunshine in Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley with highs around 6. That's your CBC News Update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob. Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks for being with us. Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney's address at the World Economic Forum in Davos this week generated international headlines and garnered international praise for its frank description of how he views the current state of global politics. This morning, Carney spoke on home soil for the first time since that address, ahead of a cabinet retreat in Quebec City. And Carney spoke this morning of Canadian values.
What makes Canada a great country? It's a great country for everyone. It's the greatest country in the world to be a regular person. You don't have to be born rich or to a landed family here. You don't have to be a certain color or worship a certain God. Canadians believe in the value of every other Canadian. Their boundless potential to make this great country even better. Our ancestors, despite their differences, believed in each other and in us. Now, there are long periods of history where these values can prosper unchallenged. Ours is not one of them. Our values must be fought for. That's what we are doing. That's what Canadians want. Canadians are up for it.
Welcome back. You're with BC Today. It is 12:35. I'm Michelle Elliott. Very nice to be with you this afternoon. Well, Chinese electric vehicles are soon to land in Canada, up to 49,000 of them annually. Last week, Prime Minister Mark Carney made a tariff deal with China, slashing the current 100% tariff on Chinese EVs to just 6.1%. We're taking your calls. What do you want to know about Chinese electric vehicles? And what are your ongoing questions about EVs? You can call us now. Just dial 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733, or 1-800-825-5950. You can also just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email your questions to bctoday@cbc.ca. And if you're watching us on TikTok, you can leave your comment there. Joining me now is Kenneth Bokor, creator of the EV Revolution show on YouTube. He also teaches an EV Essentials course through Humber Polytechnic College in Ontario. Kenneth, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Michelle. Great to be back.
What are your initial thoughts about this deal that would allow up to 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into the country?
Well, I think it's a good thing for Canada. One of the issues with mass EV adoption is the price point, the initial price point for EVs. Currently in Canada today, there isn't an all-electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. So when I talk about EVs, I mean vehicles that have a plug, one of those two, for under $40,000 Canadian. And $40,000 may not sound a lot when the average price for a new light-duty vehicle in Canada is pushing almost $70,000 from last year. But it's still a significant amount of money, and affordability is still on a lot of Canadian mindsets as we try to get more EV adoption in Canada. So I think this announcement, I know that this announcement and agreement will be a good thing for the EV industry in Canada.
Okay. Now, as you know, there is pushback to this deal, in particular from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, saying it's not a good thing for the auto industry in Canada, that it would mean loss of jobs and it threatens the industry. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd like to understand where that data is coming from, because the point of this announcement, that 49,000 number that you mentioned, Michelle, and scaling up to 70,000 a year in year 5, is only represents about 2.5% to 3% of the overall light-duty vehicle, new vehicle sales market in Canada. So I'm not sure how 3% market penetration is going to jeopardize a long-standing Canadian industry of automakers, especially here in Ontario. If folks in BC don't know, the automakers in Ontario, a lot of them have been pulling EV development and EV projects out of Canada, and even some production of ICE vehicles, internal combustion vehicles, out of Canada back into the US because of the US tariff situation. So we've actually seen a decline in jobs for the automotive sector in Canada that I'm aware of. So I'm not sure where Premier Ford is coming from when he says this is going to be, very hard in the Canadian automotive industry and a loss of a lot of jobs. I'm not sure where that number is coming from.
My guest is Kenneth Bokor, creator of the EV Revolution show on YouTube. He also teaches an EV Essentials course through Humber Polytechnic College in Ontario, which is where he's based. We're taking your questions to Kenneth. What do you want to know about Chinese electric vehicles? What are your questions about the electric vehicle industry? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733. And Kenneth, before I go to our first caller in Vancouver, and Daniel is on the line, if you want to just hold one moment, I just want to get from you kind of a layout of what kinds of makes or models people can expect, because people don't really know much about the Chinese electric vehicle industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge industry. 50% of all plug-in vehicles globally are in China. So they have over 30 OEMs or auto manufacturers in country that build these kinds of products. So they've been very hard at work at building good EVs longer than we have been here in North America. And their products scale from a very entry-level, subcompact, four-door hatchback products, all the way up to large SUV and minivan products as well. So they do cover a scale. And one of the caveats to the agreement that Prime Minister Carney had mentioned is that we would see there would have to be a large portion of those Chinese-made EVs that come in need to be under $35,000 sell price in Canadian dollars. And that's, again, where we don't see anybody in the current automotive landscape today, or even future announcements kind of coming way below 40,000 anytime soon.
What kinds of brands are we looking at here?
Well, BYD is one of the ones that people may know of. They may have seen buses or other construction trucks and these kinds of equipments on the commercial side. They are the global leader in plug-in sales in the world. They sold over 4 million in 2025. Tesla being number 2 is about 1.7, 1.8 million. So it shows you how fast they've grown the market share in a very short time. They have a kind of a 50-50 sales of plug-in hybrids versus all electrics. But there's other companies like NIO, Xiaomi, GM has their SAC alliance with the state-owned facility, Zeekr, and Geely as well, which actually owns Polestar and Volvo and MG brands. So there's a lot of presence out there.
Okay, let's take our first question to Kenneth Bokor and put out our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 1-800-825-5950, or 604-669-3733, 604-669-3733. And Daniel is first up in Vancouver. Hi, Daniel, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My question is whether these vehicles that will be coming in from China are going to be fully in line with the Canada Motor Vehicle Safety Standards as they stand now. And I'm coming from a little bit of an unusual perspective maybe on this, because I think a lot of times when that question gets raised, there's an implicit assumption that, oh, well, foreign standards would be inferior. Are we degrading our safety standards? But in Canada, we're sort of on a regulatory island, sort of handcuffed to the U.S. standards. And meanwhile, the rest of the world through the UN standards has really moved pretty far ahead of the U.S. standards. Everything from better headlights with less glare, better turn signals, better pedestrian protection, the list goes on. I'm sort of wondering if maybe there's going to be this might be used as a springboard to sort of nudge Canada towards the international consensus standards and maybe trying to get rid of those handcuffs to the U.S. standards. What do you think?
Very interesting question, Daniel. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel, for that as well. I'm not sure if I can fully answer that question because from a legislative process, I don't exactly know how Canada may move. But certainly, if they're going to allow these kinds of vehicles into Canada, they will have to conform with Canadian rules, laws, and regulations from a safety standard. So DRLs, the right kinds of turn signals, all that kind of stuff that we take. You're correct. We do parallel a lot and match the U.S. standards. We can argue inferiority or not. Some of the stuff in Europe is pretty good. So as a simple answer, I believe that these vehicles will have to conform just to be able to be sold. And if they don't, they'll have to be modified to be able to conform to our standards. What the long-term adoption is, I'm not sure where we'll go there.
Okay. Thank you again for that question. Jacob is next now in Vancouver. The number is again 604-669-3733, 1-800-825-5950. If you're just joining us, we are taking your questions about Chinese electric vehicles, as we are expecting anytime soon up to 49,000 Chinese EVs to enter the country on an annual basis. And that is in light of a new trade deal signed between Canada and China. Taking your questions to Kenneth Bokor and Jacob in Vancouver. Go ahead. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I was just calling about the long-term footprint of electric cars, because manufacturing lithium is a very energy-intensive process. And I know that in China, they're mainly burning coal for energy. So whether it be the Chinese cars or the cars that we manufacture in North America, with all the shipping of the components of the car around the world, what is the long-term effect of the greenhouse effect? Like, we always think about the immediate car burning, but for example, if I'm driving an electric car, but I'm charging it with electricity that's generated by coal plants, how effective is it in the long term?
Yeah.
It's something I'm always calculating as I contemplate the prospects of buying an electric car.
I imagine you're one of many who ponder that, right? That balance or dilemma. Jacob, very good to hear from you. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Kenneth.
Yeah, Jacob, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. It's very common. What I can tell you is that there's tons of hard science that show that the life cycle of an EV, especially an all-electric, even with a higher energy source of charging that vehicle during its lifetime, the mining, the extraction, all those carbon impacts for the life chain of that vehicle, we call it cradle to grave. If you look up those kinds of reports, even with all that in consideration, the worst case, they're still about 50% better from a carbon impact than internal combustion vehicles are. Talking about shipping stuff, I mean, again, oil production is a very energy intensive resource. There's a lot of factors there that go into play. And where EVs make up any impacts they have at the beginning, especially with mining and other elements, is while you're driving that all-electric, you're emitting nothing. And the average consumer keeps their vehicles 8, 10, 5 years, 12 years. That all adds up to a substantial amount of carbon reduction in CO2 emissions. Usually within the first year or two, 15 to 20 to 30,000 kilometers of driving, you've already negated that upfront carbon impact. So great science, good studies out there. I would encourage you to look them up, but it's a very positive message that I can give you as an answer.
Jacob, thank you very much. Certainly an ongoing, many have this a very similar question to you. Thank you very much for that call. John is next in Grand Forks with a question about EVs in general and Chinese EVs in particular. Hi there, John.
Hello.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So what I was thinking here, what came to mind for me today on this topic was there was a electric EV or EV manufacturer here in Canada called Electromechanica.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Vancouver, and they had to move their manufacturing operations to Mesa, Arizona. So, it's a real shame. We have these great startups in Canada, and we can't seem to be able to keep them in our country. This has happened in the solar panel industry as well. People that were making advances in solar panels had to move their operations to Germany to make it feasible. So, we really need to change our way of thinking here in Canada and support this industry, and especially now in Ontario, where we have an excellent opportunity to retool these auto plants and gear them up for EVs. One thing that has been not talked about too much on the news is that Carney had discussions with China about bringing the EVs into Canada, but he also had discussions about manufacturing them in Canada.
Yeah.
So we need to speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you raised it. And it's so interesting because we just had a conversation about Electromechanica this morning on our team, John. So thank you for raising that. And this was a company, I think, yes, based out of Vancouver. I don't know if you're familiar with them, Kenneth?
Yeah, I am. I know the owner as well. I mean, that's a different story. That's a very niche product. It was a niche focused product of a two-seater kind of arrangement, or even single-seater scenarios, very small urban transport. Again, you have to look at the market landscape. Is that something, even though a lot of people are in their vehicle by themselves during the day driving back and forth, is something like that still practical for a lot of situations? Canadians, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what happened to that company and why they've moved. But again, it's a market decision. We're used to the normal kind of vehicles that are out there. To John's question about manufacturing, absolutely, that is something that is in Prime Minister's purview, that I'm aware of, that they want the Chinese industry to invest in Canada, whether it's not only a dealer network, a service network, and a parts supply chain network, possibly looking at manufacturing. There may be opportunities for them to take over existing OEM plants that are not producing products today. I'll throw out the GM Cami plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, that shut down because GM has canceled the Bright Drop product. So they're not building anything there today. Maybe that might be something that BYD or somebody in the long term might be interested in bringing jobs to Ontario to build into that plant. Also sourcing materials from the Ring of Fire in Ontario or in other areas across Canada for rare earth minerals and supply chain elements that they'll need in manufacturing and supporting these vehicles. So I think there's a big door that's open there. I totally agree with you, John. I would love to see the legacy OEMs invest more in EV production in Canada, but the truth is they're simply not.
Chaz is up next in Prince George, and I think you have a similar question about manufacturing. Chaz, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking the call. So really the question, it's exactly that on manufacturing, and I'm just love to get your view on when we think of the price difference and the price advantage that China has, especially on the battery side. You think that really only transpires when the vehicle is fully produced in China and then shipped over. So if we had manufacturing here, what kind of manufacturing do you think that would potentially look like? Would it just be like final assembly? And because I'm especially interested on the Geely side, because like you said, they own Volvo. Also, obviously, Volvo has that plant in Carolina. Maybe one day they could just be making Geelys and Zeekrs. But let's say you get a car coming in, it has final assembly in Canada. Does that effectively make it USMCA compliant, or no? It would still get hit with tariffs. Any color around there? Would be interesting to see what your comments are.
Yeah, thank you.
That's great questions. For the last comment, all I can say is as long as the current U.S. administration is in power, everything that has the word China on it will get hit with tariffs. So we could probably answer that one quite fast. From a manufacturing perspective, yeah, it could start with something like final assembly. That might be a great way for some of these manufacturers to start. Or it could be a full circular economy. Again, Honda had announced doing that in Alliston, where they want to have sourcing minerals to build batteries on site in Alliston, build a plant, source them from Ontario, build the cars, build all electrics, ship them, and then when the batteries come back for salvage, they'll recycle them. They'll have a recycle element. So that whole circular economy could happen with somebody like a BYD or somebody else that's willing to invest the time and effort to do that. I don't see something like that happening right out of the gate. I could see smaller step footprints like final assembly or something along those lines. Certainly parts manufacturing potentially, certainly warehousing and the supply chain element of parts could occur. And then maybe some sourcing. Again, maybe they could source some of their battery manufacturing from Canadian minerals and from our marketplace here.
Thank you for that question. Next is Carol joining us from Chetwynd. Carol, go ahead. Your question about Chinese electric vehicles.
Yes, good afternoon. I was wondering, like, I work hard for my money, and I think it's a good idea to have competition. And I think buying from China is nothing wrong with that. All my suits and my pants, and it seems they're all made in China, including my Donald Trump pants and my Donald Trump ties. So my question is, are we going to have an incentive like they did with the Tesla way back then? And will we have, and when are they coming to Canada, those beautiful cars?
Incentives and timeline.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kenneth.
Thank you. I'm not sure about incentives. Right now, the federal government is still reviewing the last ZEV program that they had. They, of course, had paused it and then canceled the last one, where we had a $5,000 federal incentive for many medium-priced vehicles across Canada. That has gone away. They are currently reviewing that, so we may see a financial incentive come back. Some of the provinces still do. I still believe, Michelle, you guys have something going on in BC. I know it's been up and down. Quebec has something.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yes, as far as I know, it's been on pause. I'm going to have to look it up to make sure, because there's been a back and forth around whether it's the mandate. I believe the incentives follow the federal government, but I'm going to look it up right now.
Correct, and a lot of them are targeting emission mandate lowering. So even in the federal numbers have been paused as well, and I fully expect those numbers to be pushed. I mean, 2035 for 100% new car sales being plug-ins is a very aggressive timeline. I would expect the feds to come back with something like 2050 and stagger that goal to get there a little bit longer out. So incentives, we should hear something, I would say, by the end of this quarter or into April, maybe when the new fiscal year starts. But they're working on announcing something soon. I'm hoping there's a monetary assessment, but it might be something like maybe a GST, maybe no GST or something like that. As far as on Chinese vehicles, timing, I don't know how fast they could do this. Certainly BYD and other manufacturers have presence already in Canada. I've seen BYD Tang vehicles being road tested in Ontario. I've come up behind one with Ontario plates a couple of years ago. So they have been here doing some testing. They could probably bring them fast and open up showrooms really quickly. I would not be surprised to start seeing some inventory flow into some provinces before the end of this year.
Okay. And the latest story from Canadian press saying in November, BC has abandoned a rebate program for electric vehicles that had been paused already, and also scrapped a mandate that every new vehicle sold in the province must be zero emission by 2035. Part of that, they say, was because of the high electric vehicle prices. And they put Adrian Dix, the energy minister, said that responsibility would go to Ottawa. So that is the latest in BC. I really want to get this last question from Michael on Quadra Island. Hi, Michael. Thanks for calling us.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm just curious. I think Tesla sort of monitors every car user and collects their data. I suppose ostensibly to sort of improve their responsiveness to driving patterns. But I'm wondering if the same is happening with the Chinese. is it just purely mechanical data, or are they also, perhaps tracking our conversations and how we think and all that? So it's a question of data, which seems to be a very valuable commodity these days. And are we actually giving something to the Chinese by buying their cars?
It's a great question, Michael, and that's always a concern for anything foreign. From Tesla's perspective, they basically track telemetry data on the vehicles. So anything to do with what the sensors, what the computer's picking up from all the different elements in the EV powertrain and platform, speeds, G-forces, GPS, location, any personal data as far as ownership and anything personalized is encrypted on their servers and not basically passed back and forth. Some of that is for payment when you use their app for things. So what the Chinese will be allowed to do, I'm 100% sure that the federal government will make sure that there are some mandates as well around security and safeguards for that, as far as security goes in those systems. And I would guess that it'll just be telemetry data similar to what Tesla does and other OEMs, GM, Ford. They all have apps and they all talk to servers nowadays in clouds for sending that data there. I believe that it'll follow the same route with the Chinese vehicles.
And one last question about charging infrastructure. Are they compatible at all with Canadian, the network here?
They'll most likely have to change the plug type, Michelle. It's a great question. I believe the onboard systems should be compatible because they're all fairly similar in how they work internally from an AC DC conversion and inverter perspective. So it's just most likely going to be the charge plug type that they'll have to change. And I wouldn't be surprised if they start adopting the North American charging standard, which is for Latterman's term, the Tesla plug, which most of the OEMs have adopted now because it just is much easier.
I know we've been talking about electric vehicles here, and I know you're a big supporter of it, but there are people who do question how well they will withstand Canadian weather. I don't need your response to this, but just want to shout out to Joyce, who writes, well, the EVs produced do not meet the needs of most Canadians who drive in winter long distances outside urban areas. Just wanted to acknowledge your email, Joyce. Thank you very much. Ken, always great to speak with you. Thank you.
You too, Michelle. Thank you.
That's Kenneth Bokor.